All right, this is the arm line attunement. So the fascial arm lines exist from the fingertips into the chest, from fingertips on the backside right into the shoulder blades and in toward the spine of the body. So it's truly connecting your hands to your core. And I'm going to teach you how to organize and activate through these fascial lines to create incredible stability through the hand, the wrist, the elbow, and into the shoulders, onto the core of the body. So if you've ever had shoulder issues, this will solve a lot of issues for you. I would love to hear about it in the comments. You've got to try this in your body. It's literally going to change your life. So enjoy and let me hear from you in the comments. Bye for now.
Let's just take the right arm and swing it forward. So you're going to swing it forward into flexion and then swing it back into extension. So just go forward and back a few times and just keep it really loose. And then start to notice. So if we were to stop that at the upper end at flexion, you would probably notice that you have your shoulder joint is slightly externally rotated. So that's very natural for external rotation to happen with flexion. It's also very natural if we were to swing back and stop for medial rotation to happen with extension. So that's just something important to know. We don't want to be at odds with how our shoulder naturally functions. We want to move our shoulder through all of the ways that it can move, but when it comes to stabilizing the shoulder, we actually want to really light up the back line, which is what's going to happen as we create external rotation, okay? So I'll show you a few times when that really comes into play. Thank you, Carrie. It's great to have an extra arm around when you need one. Okay, let's begin with some sun breaths. So just standing in Tadasana, we'll organize and activate as we do. Great toes pointing straight ahead, heels a little wider. And we're rooting down into the great toe itself, the great toe mound, the pinky mound, and inner and outer aspect of the heel. As we energize down and unlock our knees, we're going to fire up the thighs and the seat. So what we're doing here is tensioning the lateral line and the spiral line. That's actually going to give us access to some tension through the deep front line, through the arches of the feet, inner aspect of the legs, inseams to pelvic floor, lower belly, and then on up the central channel of the body. So, you know, we often talk about that in yoga where we're engaging Mula Bandha, engaging Jalandhara Bandha, breathing Ujjayi breath through the central channel of the body. This is actually a subtle awareness and subtle engagement of the deep front line of the body. So let's create that. And then we're just going to work with sun breaths. Super simple. Inhale the arms to the sides and overhead. We're going to do a little exploration here. Take it down when you're ready. So you're just going to keep going up and down with your Ujjayi breath a few rounds. So let's explore when you bring your arms up, what does it feel like when you go palms up and then take it down, exhale downward. Good. Take it up again, palms up. Good. And take it down. Now when we go palms up, it's quite natural for the shoulders to externally rotate. However, you could turn palms up and not have your shoulders externally rotated. But you would have to think about that because it wouldn't be the most natural thing that happens. But what I want you guys to experiment with right now is what happens if I internally rotate at my shoulders, point my palms to the back of my body, and then I try to abduct the arms away from the body. It's going to feel kind of miserable. You're going to feel like you might be grinding some tissue there. Yeah, it feels pretty nasty. So of course we don't want to do that. Now the fact is you can just relax your arms. A lot of people are externally rotated posturally, so if they sit at a desk, then it's very natural for the shoulder to be in this position. You'll know it right away if somebody has their palms facing backward. That's an indication that they have their shoulders habitually internally rotated. Again, you know, if you don't do it habitually, it's not a big deal. But if it's habitual, it starts to change the tissue, it changes the function of the joint. So in our practice, we're going to keep externally activated. That will keep our shoulder in a better, more stable position. Okay, so let's do a couple more sun breaths. Inhale the arms to the sides and overhead, and exhale down. So you'll notice that as you come down, it's quite natural for the palms to come down. Inhale, turn the palms up, and exhale, turn the palms down. It's also a good idea to, in the course of teaching your classes, take the arms out to the side sometimes. You could also take them forward sometimes. So sometimes sweep the arms forward, maybe then take them out, sweep them forward, and maybe just put palms down and take them back. So, lots of different directional movement would be great. So let's take one more reach upward. Hold it up, and then exhale, dive your body forward and down. Let's come into a forward fold. So as we come into this fold, press down into your feet and energize your legs like you're dialing the knees away from each other. Maintain a subtle bend of the knee. And now inhale, take your arms up behind you into extension, just there. So let's not bind for a moment. And let's just notice when our arms are in extension, it's going to, once again, be very natural for them to internally rotate. So that's great. Do that first. Then you're going to bring your hands together wherever that needs to be for you. Before you go into the end of your range, let's just bind. And now we're going to energize so that the shoulders move away from the ears. Maybe you can draw your shoulder blades towards each other. And then you're going to activate as though you wanted to pull your hands apart. So keep some energy. You're going to find this energizes the front arm lines. So pull those apart, and then you can explore, if you want, a little bit more extension, which would mean this direction, but there's no need to go far. You're going to do it in an active position though. Activate first, and then see what you have available. Because that's always what we want to do. We want to make sure we're just going into our range of control. We stay with that, we breathe with that. That is going to increase if we practice that way. We have to practice actively. All right, let's take one more big deep breath here. Very nice. And now push down into your feet. Inhale, send your heart forward, carry that all the way back up. Beautiful. And then you can relax your arms. Inhale, reach your arms up. Turn the palms inside out after you've laced your fingers and press the palms up to the sky. Press your palms up to the sky. Good. Good. And now here, we're once again activating as though you could pull the fingers apart. And now you're going to activate this a little bit more into the lats and into the body from that aspect. So like you're pulling the arms apart. Let's take one more deep breath here. And exhale, you can relax it and let the arms come down. You can shake that out. All right, let's take a nice deep breath here. Exhale, forward fold. Let's bring hands to the mat and step back for downward facing dog. So we've talked a lot about what's happening with the legs and the pelvis and the spine in downward facing dog. Let's talk a little bit more about the hands. So step your feet back a little bit more, Carrie. And now when we activate through the hands in downward facing dog, we want to press down into the pads of all the fingers. And you can even suction cup as though you're pulling your finger pads toward the wrist if you want. But what we want is lots of tensioning through the hands, maybe even an expression of the arch of the hand. Your hand actually has an arch, so it's all right if that's energized upward away from the mat slightly, but you don't have to intention that. So this is great activation. As she's pressing down, she's energizing through the arms as though she wanted to dial them away. So she's creating external rotation at the shoulders, which gives her a bit more space here. And she's pushing really hard. You can probably relax that a little bit. Pushing through the hands to send the chest back, good, and elongate the spine. Great. So that's what we'd like to see, this activation through here. If you want to activate even more strongly, you could press the hands away from each other a little bit, yeah. So if you're working on creating strength for other inversions or arm balancing poses, you're going to want to find all the ways you can access a little bit more activation and strength through the arms and hands. Okay, you guys are great. Let's bring the knees down and energize down into the hands just like we did, but now you're in table pose. So now you're going to feel the wrapping of the scapula onto the thorax. So really, that's how we get it to hug in, by energizing through this external activation. Beautiful. So that is a dynamic stability, which we're going to prove in a moment. It might feel pretty solid and stable, but it is going to allow you to move, so we don't have to worry about that. All right, so now let's just work with shifting our weight forward. So you're going to reach over your hands, so that means that a little more wrist extension, and now press your hips back. Just a few times at that level. Reach your hips way back over your heels, and go forward and back a few times, maintaining external activation through the arms. So we're working with dynamic stability. We don't want it to be too rigid. We just want to make sure that we can turn that on and still move relatively stably. Good. All right. Now let's come forward. You may have to adjust your legs a little bit so that you can straighten your hips. So if you have to walk your feet back a little bit more, that's great. Good. All right. Keep dialing the hands away from each other. And now we're going to bend the elbows. So when we bend the elbows, if we're dialing our hands away from each other, our elbows are going to point back toward our hips. So let's try that. Let's just bend the elbows a little bit and then push back up. Good. Bend the elbows a little bit. Yes. And then push back up. Good. And now this time you're coming all the way down. Go all the way down, all the way down, all the way down onto your belly. Beautiful. Now just take a little breath here. Extra breath. Root down into the top surfaces of your feet and your pubic bone. Press into your palms and energize your hands like you're dialing them away from each other right here. So as you do that, you're going to feel how you are literally connecting your arms to your core. Okay? So let's just, for experiment purposes, let's spin that in the other direction. What happens when we press down and dial the hands away from each other? We lose that sense of connection. So let's off on a couple of times. Give yourself a chance to experiment with that. And then we'll go into little cobra. So root down into the lower body, pubic bone, hands pressed down, dial away from each other. Inhale. Good. Use that connection to lift. Now sometimes we want to do a little cobra just to work the upper back extensors. That's a different experiment. This one here is to get the shoulders used to organizing in this way. So let's go up and down a couple of times. So this is going to really help you when you're ready to make that transition from chaturanga, dandasana to upward facing dog. You learn how to activate and organize the shoulders that way. It actually will help you manage the weight bearing that those postures and transitions are asking you for. Okay, next time you come up with your little cobra. Now from here, you're going to keep dialing the hands away from each other. Shift back, hips over heels. Yep, pull through your belly and then shift back. Good. So now let's take a couple rounds of coming back into that plank position from the knees. Dial hands away from each other, come to the mat. Then inhale, little cobra, dialing hands away from each other. Exhale, press back over your heels. Good. One more time. Take your time. Make sure you're breathing. Inhale, little cobra, dialing hands away from each other. And exhale, press back. Very nice. Good. Now let's come into full plank with toes tucked. Wonderful. So now we're just adding more load, and this is more of a mechanical disadvantage as well. So we're still energizing like we're dialing the hands away from each other. We want to wrap the scapulae onto the thorax, connect the hand into the core. Notice I'm not talking about the elbow. This is a hand to core connection, and your body is wired that way. It's much more stable for the body to stabilize from hand to core than it is from forearms or elbows to the core. We're just not as naturally designed to make that kind of connection. So that's something we can practice too. All right, so from here, let's slowly bring the knees down, dial hands away from each other, and come to the mat for a little cobra. Yeah, so just working from a little bit more of a loaded position, okay? You can exhale down, tuck your toes. How about downward facing dog? Now let's take it through the knees, okay? Press back. Now we'll try one more transition. Inhale to upper push-up. Exhale, knees down. Keep dialing hands away from each other as you come to the mat. Inhale, little cobra. exhale back to downward facing dog. So there's no point in working with a fully loaded posture until you're able to manage a less weighted one. So let's try it one more time. Upper push-up. If you are already practicing chaturanga to up dog, you can take it now. Otherwise, knees down first. And then exhale back. So it's always working from a posture that you can fully manage, practice the mechanics, and then slowly add a challenge. Really nicely done, you guys. Okay, so from this downward facing dog position, we're going to pretend that we're prepping for handstand. Why not, hey? So pressing down into palms, energize like you're dialing the hands away from each other. And if you're able to, walk your feet a little closer to your hands. I'll give you a quick side view of what I'm asking them to do, is to come into this kind of a posture, maybe onto the toes, dialing hands away from each other. And then you're going to, for something like handstand, you need to actually push the arms out of the body a little bit. Okay, so for downward facing dog, we have the shoulder girdle in the body. But if we're going into handstand, we're pushing the arms out of the body a little bit. So there's no need for anybody to go into it. Yeah, kick a leg up if you want, play around with that, but establish a really firm connection of hand to core. That's the name of the game right now, hand to core. Very nice. Push the floor away from you. And so, this is the way it works in the body. The more you push into the floor or the wall, the more you're going to get a reaction force to work with in your body. And you use that to fire up the lines and create stability. So that's how it works. Okay, very lovely, you guys. From here, you're going to step back to upper push-up position. Beautiful. All right, let's from here, you can bring your knees down if you need to, but yeah, let's come onto the forearms and lace the fingers. Okay, so I'm suggesting they're lacing their fingers because at least initially, this is going to help them stay active through the arms and shoulders because they'll energize like they're trying to do this. That's going to help them keep the elbows inward, which is the natural thing that happens when we externally rotate at the shoulder. So we're going to activate like you're pulling your fingers apart from each other. All right, let's push down into the forearms and come onto the toes for dolphin pose. This is a really good way to prepare for headstand, okay, if you're going into headstand. And again, I'm not saying everyone should do headstand. I'm not even saying that anyone should do headstand. But I know that some people are practicing for it. So what we want to look for here is this ability to energize down into the forearms and create full shoulder flexion under load. So that means that, let's come forward just a little bit. If this is all the shoulder flexion that she had, it might not be time for her to go into full headstand just because she might have too much weight on the head at that point. So if she's able to go into full loaded shoulder flexion, then she's going to be well prepared for a headstand when it's time for her to do that. So activating down and activating the hands like they're going to pull apart from each other will help keep the elbows where they need to be for something like supported headstand. All right, let's come down out of that posture. You can take child's pose for a moment. And here I'll just talk about another really important thing with the shoulders. I never recommend passive shoulder stretching. I don't recommend passive stretching in general, but especially not for the shoulders because it's really easy to exploit the shoulder tissue. So what I would recommend is something like tented fingers here. And yeah, elbows. So a little bit of energization, okay? So she might be at the end of her shoulder flexion range, but she's gonna stay a little bit more active there. That's safer for her shoulder than going at her absolute end range and hanging out there passively. Don't recommend that at all. So lots of activation here through the shoulders What about that one? So pressing down into the fingers and carrying that energy into the body. So you can see now the connection of the back arm line through the trapezius here into the body. Really good. But also the front line is also connected to latissimus dorsi, which is slightly confusing, but that's because it connects to the front of the humerus bone. Okay, that was a nice little rest. So let's come up onto the toes, plant the palms, downward facing dog. Good, let's step the right foot through. Step between the hands, good. And you can turn your left foot out and make sure your stance is long enough for long side angle. Ground down into your right foot. Bring your right elbow just above your right knee. And then you can open up the body, reaching your fingers beyond the front of the mat. Yeah. And so for a posture like long side angle, we want external rotation at the shoulders. So this is the shoulders spinning this way so that the palm of the hand faces to the back body. Okay, and so just remember your other lines. In order to ground down here, you want to press the knee to the outside and activate your lateral line and your spiral line. So there's a lot going on in this posture. But what we want to address today is the bind in this posture. So will we try for that one? Let's bring this hand down to the inside of your foot, first of all. Step this foot back a little bit more. Yeah, good. And now her upper hand, you're going to bring that into extension. So let's just go into extension first, which is this position. From extension, it's natural for her to medially rotate, so then she can come here. And yeah, she could wrap the arm over the leg. And if she does that, I recommend she press into that hand and keep this activated. Do you see how that opened up her shoulder? I don't like to use the word opened up, but it helped her rotate the trunk back a little bit more. So that's a really nice place. And then here, she could also extend, medially rotate, and then make the bind. And then I'm going to support you a little bit here. And then she's going to move the shoulder back. Press down into that front foot. Dial the knee out. Yeah, good. Very nice. All right, let's push down into the foot. You can unbind and bring it back up. Very nice, you guys. Let's step the left foot forward. Lean into your front foot and step. Good. Let's just shake that out. A little random movement maybe. And then bending into the knees, step into your left foot and step back with your right foot. Beautiful. All right, let's start with the elbow just above the knee. So you can bring elbow just above the knee. And we want to make sure this knee presses out, and then the other hand. So we've got this external rotation happening here. And then if we're looking at binding, we might want to bring this hand down first, because that would ensure that we're ready. This top hand's going to come back, bend. This arm comes under. We're going into extension first, medial rotation and binding. And then the bind can actually help you rotate open, but you want to keep this really active. It's not barely there and then pulling yourself into the position. It's staying really active. This is so good. Yeah, this is really good. So not even binding, but just working with your range of control. This is so nice. I love it. Very nice. Okay, let's unbind, press down into that front foot and come to standing. Yep, very nice. Inhale, arms up. Exhale all the way down. Ah, very nice. Even in Uttanasana posture like this, hands can be, if they're on the ground, they're dialing away from each other. So even here, yep. So keeping the shoulders open. Even here, they're dialing hands beside your feet, possibly. Yeah. So creating this external rotation here, arms into the body. Lovely. Very, very good. Now, let's bend the knees. Let's bend the knees a lot. If your hands are beside your feet, let's take them forward a little bit. Dial hands away from each other. Press down into the toes and hop your feet back. And then from your toes, load and hop your feet forward. Keep dialing hands away from each other and load. Now in slow motion. Back, slow motion forward. And then you can just rest into a squat pose for a moment. So we'll work with crane pose now. Oh, the purpose of that little exercise was just to satisfy my own masochistic tendencies. All right. Let's bring the arms over the knees. It's usually easier to enter this pose from high up. Hands down, dialing hands away from each other. Look forward and lean. So this is the thing. Oftentimes people are learning crow pose like this, elbows out, and then they put the knees out here. This is teaching a bad habit. So I think better to learn the external activation so you actually got a stable shoulder complex to work with. Okay, so let's try that. Keep dialing hands away from each other. Very nice. So it's actually so much easier once you've been working with these lines, once you know the activations. It helps you so much. I'm really excited for you. You're going to try things that you didn't think you could do, and it's going to be there for you. So very, very nice. Okay, when you guys have had your fun, you can hop out of the pose, and let's go into supine, so lying on your back. So I've already said that, passive stretching is not ideal for the shoulder, but what is great for the shoulder are mobilizations. So let's bring the knees into the chest. Drop your knees over to the left side. Good. Everybody has the left side on the same side. That's good. All right, so now you're going to take your right arm and reach it out over. Well, let's start from the right side. Inhale, let's bring the arm up and over. Take your shoulder with you, and then bring it across your leg and just make some circles. So you're allowing the arm to drop back into the floor as you come around this upper part, and then just trace it over the leg as you come through. And we'll just do that one more time, and then we'll go in the other direction. Okay, so from wherever you are in your circle, let's start going in the other direction. Let the shoulder and arm do what it naturally does, so it's going to go through internal and external rotation. Just let it naturally in, observe. Good. Now next time, as you bring the arm open, let's just keep arms open for a moment. Press back into the ground beneath you. Take a nice deep breath. Good. Draw the knees back over the body. Arms are out to the sides. And knees go to the other side now. So take it to the right side. And now start circling. So you're going to bring the arm up above the head first. Let's go that way first. Yeah, and sometimes you have to negotiate with people for a little bit of space, but we don't mind touching each other. It's not such a big deal. And let's go in the other direction. And, here's where you might notice a difference, from one side of the body to the other. Maybe one side is a little more resistant, or there might be a little bit of a cranky corner. This is very common. All right, next time you come into the position with your left arm reaching out, let's just leave it out there for a moment. Take a nice deep breath. And from here, we'll just go into Shavasana. So please feel free to take Shavasana. That was the arm line. So we're here connecting the hand to the core. And remember, our real strong, intuitive, the way the body is built is for a hand to core connection, not so much a forearm to core connection, although we can certainly work on that. But remember, it's if you can do whatever you can do to create external activation. So pulling the fingers apart will help you with that. All right, hand to core. Feed the arms into the rest of the lines to create stability and protect your shoulders, but also build capacity in the shoulders, build good mechanics and stronger tissue. All right, thanks for joining me for that one, and I will see you on the next lesson.